Well, that was not fun. The first half was just everything miserable you could imagine, and to sum up my initial feeling, I'm not actually going to tell you myself. I am going to let John Kramer, or Jigsaw, from Saw X explain how I'm feeling.
You took advantage of the only thing that they still possessed. Hope.
Sums it up better than I can. So yeah, we are actually going to go to the ticks first, because like I say, I like to start with the positives. Now, normally I like to start with the winners. Now, of course, for the Hawks, there were none, and because we didn't win the game, obviously, some players were better than others, of course, but let's start from sort of a team point of view, is that for that first half, because yeah, the second half was better, I understand all that, but the game was there to be won. It wasn't in a massive shitstorm of a way. The positive there is kind of like what Jordan Lewis said, an extension of it, which was everything was bad. Like, all of it was awful. And the almost comforting thing, I suppose, about that is that you can just wipe it if you're a mature enough footy side. And the Hawks have shown a lot of maturity so far in 25. I didn't really like that we were still a little chirpy-ish as the game was really slipping away. Not a massive fan of that, but I can also get behind the opinion of you've got to be who you are no matter the scoreboard. So maybe more of a pet peeve than something I want to see them eliminate from their game entirely. But the positive there is that if it can get wiped from the memory bank and prepare for Easter Monday properly, then you're going to see a better performance. I don't think the Hawks are going to put together two worse quarters of footy than they did in that first half. And look, you can come away from this and thinking, well, we won 2 quarters each, so it's a draw if you think about it that way. And look, it's absolutely not. And there is a part of me that would love to be like, well, let's blame Will Day and Mitch Lewis and Connor McDonald and Cole Shadir for being out. And then you realise, yeah, but every team's got injuries. And then you can go, the umpires in that first half, let's blame them. No, you can't blame them. And then 13-2 free kicks. Now, yes, the Dylan Moore incident with Jason Horne-Francis was nonsense. And I thought the rule of the double goal was out the window and got changed. I hope for the umpire's sake that it's not. But also, again, they're not reasons, they're not excuses, they're just observations. But 13-2, so you looked after in that way in the second half. Can't use that as an excuse. There is something quite liberating, genuinely, about being able to just sit back and go, we're a good team. That was fucking awful. And for the rest of the game, they weren't. And Port did enough. And I kind of feel bad in a sense, and I didn't really know how I would process this until we lost the game, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. What I mean is that when we lost, not being able to talk about the winners at all in these kind of reactions, because I do want to treat this as the biased Hawthorn side of the channel, and all the other videos that you get are the non-biased side of my commentary, so I don't really want to do that. What I am going to say, though, is that whilst the Hawthorn fan in me wants to talk about how bad we were, and I'm sure I will continue to do so in the crosses bit, Port were unbelievable. Like, Rosie and Butters in that first half were enormous. Off the back of the square and Butters at the stoppage. There are actually Hawthorn fans that don't want Zach Butters to be at Hawthorn, which is the dumbest fucking Hawthorn opinion I think I've seen in quite a while, which is extraordinary. I also know that this is still part of the tick section and section, whatever you want to call it, and none of these are really ticks. I don't care. There are not many of them, so let's just enjoy this, I suppose. But in terms of ticks players-wise, I don't want to spoil a whole lot of MVP votes. I want to talk about the guys that were good for the entirety of the game, and just 2 names really stand out, because a guy like Jack Ginnivan was so clean in the first quarter, 20 minutes, and then became less and less involved. Had a couple of moments that he think he would regret, Jack, but he started really well. But Josh Weddle and Jack Gunston in the first quarter still looked like themselves, which is more than, of course, you can say for the other 20 blokes there. You can't obviously include Luke Bruce because he was the sub. So credit to those guys as the game got rolling, more got involved, and more players, not just Dylan Moore. Like, he had 22 disposals, Dylan, but nothing he did outside of the Jason Horne-Francis thing is all that memorable, and no one's a bigger Dylan Moore fan than I am. But those 2 boys deserve a lot of credit. Siss's move forward was a massive tick. He needs to play forward against the Cats. We need to trust in Barris. We need to trust in Battle. I know Barris looked a touch slow on the lead, but when there was zero pressure coming out of the midfield, what do you expect? And so many key defenders this year are getting exposed because of that. It's not just him. But in terms of ticks, those guys can have it. Cam McKenzie's first half was really good, but he's not getting enough game time, which is really strange. But his kick to advantage, where he could have blasted away into the pocket, and I was worried because he stopped propped, but he drove out of the contest with his legs and kicked to the fat side to Sicily, I think it was, for his second goal, which was awesome. They're the encouraging signs that you want to see. And again, the rest of the votes you'll be able to see in the Hawks MVP a little bit later on in the video. So as far as ticks go, yeah, that's about it. Let's get to the crosses. So as I said, the entirety of that first half can be thrown away from the lack of midfield pressure, from the lack of midfield depth. Jimmy Warple's never played a worse game of footy than that. Hopefully his injury is okay, but it just looks damn right frightening. And if there was one thing that we can take away from this game is that the Hawks don't have a whole lot of momentum shifters. When the going got tough, like it did against the Giants, it was Will Day who stepped up, who wasn't there, and the next stage of development was who is going to be there. I think Connor McDonald can be relatively underrated in this aspect. He wasn't there either. Port took massive advantage of that and deserve all the credit in the world. Absolutely. Our wingers played possibly the worst ever game they have. Now, granted, the bar between Massimo and Harry Morrison is very different, but Mass by foot, again, you'd like to think he's never going to kick as badly as that. Still needs to be called out in this type of video, I think. Harry Morrison played possibly the worst wingman's game I've seen in a very long time. And look, is that harsh? Probably. That's kind of what these reactions are for. But it was awful. The lack of accountability that he gave to Jace Burgoyne, Miles Bergman when he moved to the wing, Jackson Mead when he moved to the wing throughout the day as well, was just god-awful and just not okay. Yeah, can he recover from this? I hope so. Finn McGuinness in his 50th game. Massive credit to you, Finn. If I can give him credit for that, then this was terrible. Genuinely terrible, and I'm sorry, but I was right about Josh Ward. Just seems like the guy who's only playing as well as his teammates are. He's not shifting the needle in any way. He doesn't raise the floor. He doesn't raise the ceiling. So in a night like this, what can we ask? What can we expect? What can be delivered? The answer is not much. I thought CJ tried hard. What was so weird about the defensive unit as a whole tonight was, and CJ was as guilty of this as Josh Battle was for quite a few times on the night, is they would come up as the spare to a 2-on-1 that didn't require a 2-on-1. Now, the push on Willie Rioli was dumb, iced the game, just don't do it. Whether it should have gone back to the centre or the goal square is irrelevant, just don't push him over, right? But I haven't seen a double goal like that in quite some time. 2001, John Barker against Freo was the last time I can genuinely remember it happening. I'm sure there are more recent examples of this, but I am really tired. It's Sunday night. It's like 11:30 at night because I'm prepping all my graphics and stuff. So work with me, people, is all that I'm trying to say here. And yeah, the big frustration was the lack of pressure on the ball carrier. It seemed like 4 Hawthorn blokes were looking at each other expecting one of them to tackle. None of them did, and by the time they realised what was going on, the ball was 45 metres the other way. And that was really frustrating, but the hope is that we can garner all of this together, throw it in the bin as quickly as possible, and move on to Easter Monday. A massive congrats and credit to Port. They were unbelievable in that first half and put the game away. Would have been really cool to see if the Hawks could come back, but at no point throughout that game did they look like the better side for longer than 6 consecutive minutes. You never deserve a winning game of footy like that. You just don't. So, look, the panic button's on the desk, but it's not getting opened and it's not getting pushed. And if we have a similar kind of result against the Cats, then we're having a completely different conversation. For the Hawks MVP for this round, I gave the 5 votes to Jack Gunston, who was absolutely awesome. The rest of them are there on the screen. Sicily, it was Carl Amon, who was also in consideration. CJ was in consideration as well, but I went with Sicily for his move forward and recovering from such an awful start down back. But Lloyd Meek, Jai Newcomb in the votes as well. Josh Weddle in the votes. There is the official leaderboard. Nick Watson is still leading, but I think there might be a new leader after the Geelong game. We will wait and see. So, look, I can understand being angry. I can understand being really pissed off. I do understand all of that, but it's our first loss for the year. We're 4-1. And look, I'm not religious or someone that looks for signs from the universe or anything like that, but when the double goal went through and I let out a bit of frustration, I put my hand on I nearly said wife, we're not married, to my girl's belly, who's pregnant with our daughter, and I don't know, but she kicked. Now, I felt her kick before a few times, not too many times, but a few times, and I have no idea, but it instantly calmed me down. So that's probably why I'm not raging Daz at the moment. And I'm not, a clown or anything like that, but it kind of just made me go, yeah, you know what? It's crap. Let's throw it away. Let's keep moving. So I have no idea if that means anything, but there you go. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy cohort. Comment, interact. I like to respond to as many comments as I can. Impossible to do all of them, but I do my best. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. My round review is live, so if you want to watch that, that's a part of the YouTube Shorts, which if you subscribe to me, it should end up in your feed. So if you give that a like, let more people see it, let more people join the channel, that would be awesome. I will try to do 2 videos this week and doing a guest spot on someone else's channel. That announcement coming very soon. Have a good one, guys. See you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Go the Hawks. Easter Monday, Geelong time. Let's bury the cat.